You're listening to Let's Get Iconic, the podcast for visionaries, leaders, creatives, and lovers done playing small. This is where identity expands, vision embodies, and radical self-love becomes inevitable. Because your life is as rich as the questions as you dare to ask and the truth you dare to embody. I'm Vanessa, founder of Inner Icon and the Neurotrance Method, and this is your invitation to draw a line in the sand, stop shrinking, and become the icon the world is waiting for. Let's get iconic. Welcome back to Let's Get Iconic, Episode 4. Radical Self-Love is the fiercest force to be reckoned with. You know, I love a good story. Let's just dive in. Once upon a time, there was a caterpillar who had no idea that they were a caterpillar. Not a caterpillar who thought they were less. Not a caterpillar who believed something was even wrong with them. A caterpillar who simply didn't know what had been encoded inside them their entire lives. They moved through the world doing exactly what they were built to do. Productive, purposeful, busy in all the ways that looked like progress. And they had watched butterflies their entire lives, and every time they felt something that they couldn't quite name. It wasn't envy. It wasn't exactly longing. It was something quieter. It was a recognition. And right behind that recognition, every single time came that voice. That could never be me. They fly and I crawl. They are radiant and I'm ordinary. They are the real thing. I'm just me. And here is what I want you to see. You see, that voice, that automatic instant disqualification, is the oldest lie in the garden. We have a name for that now. It's called Imposter Syndrome. It's what happens when we're standing in proof, absolutely certain that the proof does not apply to us. Achieving, building, succeeding, yet privately waiting for someone to discover we were never the real thing. This caterpillar, it had imposter syndrome too. But here's what the caterpillar didn't know. Every single butterfly that they had ever admired had once been exactly where they are. The wings weren't a prize for others who were more deserving. The wings were already inside them. Science actually has a name for it. It's called Imaginal cells. From the very first day of the caterpillar's life, they carry cells that hold the complete blueprint for the butterfly. The wings, the colors, the ability to fly, already written, already there. The caterpillar was never an imposter in the garden. The caterpillar was the butterfly in its first chapters. And then something shifted. Life didn't ask them to stop. It demanded it. Into the stillness they had always navigated around. Into the darkness they had tried to ignore. Into the cocoon. Here's what most people get wrong about the cocoon. They think it's where the caterpillar becomes something new. It isn't. The cocoon is simply where the old story dissolves. Inside that darkness, everything the caterpillar believed about themselves. I crawl, I don't fly. I'm ordinary, not extraordinary. It all softens, it loosens, and it falls away. When the imaginal cells first begin to awaken, the cells carrying the truth of the butterfly, the caterpillar's own body resists them, fights them, treats them like a threat, just like we do. Just like when someone tries to tell us how beautiful or talented or extraordinary we are, something in us tries to explain it away. But the imaginal cells don't argue. They simply keep showing up. They find each other, they connect until there's so many of them holding so much truth that old story has nothing left to stand on. And the body that once resisted the becoming becomes it. The caterpillar didn't become someone new in the dark. They let go of the story that said the wings belonged to someone else. They went within and they wrote a new story, a true story. So if you're feeling that gap right now, that quiet certainty that you're the exception, the one the proof doesn't apply to, the truth is you're not broken, you're not behind, and you're not an imposter. You're a butterfly. That tension you're feeling is that next level version of yourself is bigger than your comfort zone. And that's exciting. And it can be terrifying, and it is a time to be tender and honest with ourselves, what our needs are, what our boundaries are, what we need to let go of those parts of ourselves that have been holding ourselves back, which is a safety mechanism. But we can't play it safe and reach the shiniest goals at the same time. You got to pick a lane, right? You have that expansion inside you calling you for a reason. It's your time to step into a new identity and become who you're meant to become. Because we're meant to evolve. We're meant to blossom. We're meant to really see what we're made of. And now I'd like to talk about a true mirror. I came across a video the other day of people seeing themselves for the first time in what's called a true mirror, which is two mirrors angled at exactly 90 degrees. And what it does is it corrects what a regular mirror gets wrong, because a regular mirror reverses our image. Left becomes right, right becomes left. And our faces that we've spent our entire lives looking at are actually a flipped version of how everyone else in the world sees us. The true mirror corrects that. It shows us what others see. It's unreversed, unflipped, true. In the video, each person who stepped in front of one of these true mirrors, they just kind of broke open. And it was so beautiful to see the awe of them seeing themselves for the first time. They would end up in tears, not from vanity, not from shock. They cried because they were seeing themselves, like really seeing themselves for the first time. What they found wasn't what they had feared. What they found was someone they recognized, but someone that was softer than expected, someone more beautiful than the story they had been telling themselves for years, someone who could finally see through the eyes of love. And I want you to sit with this. You see, imposter syndrome is that reversed mirror. You see the one who doesn't belong. That's a story we're healing, because really, honestly, that's a collective story meant to control us. Because if we know how powerful, beautiful, and undeniable we are, well, watch out, world. What was so profound for me, while I was watching this video, I recognized this entire experience because I'd seen this moment before, not in front of a physical mirror, but in my work. Every time I sit with a client and do this work, I see that deep, safe, internal space. The moment when the reversed image they had been carrying of themselves the entire time corrects. And they see themselves truly, not the distorted reflection built from old wounds and borrowed beliefs, not the image assembled for every time they were told they were too much or not enough. The real them, the whole them, the them that's been waiting beneath the hustle, underneath the performance, underneath all of the years of looking in the wrong mirror. The subconscious doesn't have judgment. It's literal. It sees the weight of what you're carrying and how abusive some of the things you think about yourself and say about yourself truly are. It is a game changer to experience this deep subconscious aha moments. You see the truth in the essence of radical self-love, in the embodiment of unconditional love, and that is a game changer. If we knew the amount of subconscious negative garbage, we'd all be like Sisyphus rolling up this giant rock up the hill. and beating ourselves up the entire time like, oh, you're worthless, even though you're pushing this giant rock up the hill, so you're pretty badass, right? Here's the thing. You don't need to be carrying all that. You could dissolve it with those imaginal selves. You can dissolve all that heaviness in doing this work within the subconscious, stepping into radical self-love. People worry about the deep, dark secrets, but really that stuff dissolves pretty quickly just because you gave it space. You gave it acknowledgement. Our emotions are like kids. They just need to be heard. And once we hear what they have to say, everything changes. It's in the I don't want to hear it that we put ourselves into these cages. So that's literally saying, no, you have to stay in that cocoon, fighting the imaginal cells. That's why we feel that tension. We feel the tension because the imaginal cells are like, no, we know what we came here to do. We've got something to do. We got some wings. You can fight us as long as you want, but we're going to keep on going. We're going to keep fighting this. Because that part of you knows it's time to level up. It's time to create the change. That tension is there because there's peace waiting on the other side of the tension, just like that emotion that needs to be heard. If that tension had words, what would that be? That is the key. That's what needs to be heard. People often have a lot of fear with doing the deeper work. And it's in the deeper work that you free the heaviness. You let go of all of that baggage that was like 10 tons of BS. You know, I mean, that BS helped you at one point. All of that conditioning got you from A to B to C. But now it's time to get to D. And guess what? You can't carry all of that baggage. If you're ready to depart to some new, exciting, wonderful adventure, you're going to have to let go of some baggage. You got to go into the cocoon. You got to see that true mirror. Coming home to yourself so deeply, so unconditionally. Taking the time to create a safe place, a sacred container for you to let go of what is just causing so much pain in your life. You gotta do that internal maintenance. If you're gonna go out there and see what you're made of, you gotta kind of rinse and repeat. It's not one and done. You gotta keep on shedding those layers. It's like the snake transforms. We're meant to move on to the next chapter. We're meant to level up. We're meant to step into a new arena of leadership, a new arena of love, a new arena of being. I think every single one of us can raise our hands and say, yeah, the truth is I beat myself up almost every day, right? If we stop beating ourselves up on the daily and actually just really work on those imaginal cells, metaphorically speaking, guess what? It's going to get real beautiful around here. And that's my intention with this work, is to help people to just be the most beautiful versions of themselves and to enjoy every, you know, it's not a someday and way in the future. You can step into this today. And that is true power. That's a true mirror. It's knowing that you don't have to get approval for the next this, that, and the other. You can step into it. You can embody it right now. Yes, we have to deal with a society that makes us prove this, that, and the other. But you know what? When you're coming from that internal approval of knowing exactly who you are, because you stepped into that radical self-love, everything is going to just bend around you to meet you to who you really are. Let's go back to radical self-love and what it really is. I want to be honest with you about something. For a long time, I kind of thought self-love was like this fluffy pink pillows, bubble baths, and spa days. And, you know, it was kind of indulgent, right? I thought the most successful people were the ones that just pushed the hardest, demanded the most from themselves, and really held themselves to impossible standards, right? Sounds familiar, I'm sure. But I was wrong. Yeah, I was wrong. I'll admit it. Because here's what I was actually doing. I was confusing self-discipline with self-punishment. I was confusing high standards with never being enough. And I was confusing ambition with a war that I didn't really understand I was waging against myself. And the war was costing me everything. Everything looked great on the outside, but it costed me my peace, my relationships, and my ability to really honestly enjoy the life I was working so hard to build. I was the caterpillar, eating, growing, building, achieving, watching other people fly and making it look so darn easy. But I never stopped long enough to ask myself, what if what I'm searching for on the outside was actually already inside me? What if I already have wings? What if I always did? Right? Radical self-love, the kind I'm talking about, is not soft. It's not passive. It doesn't look like convincing yourself you're fine when you're not. It's not the caterpillar pretending the cocoon isn't calling. It's the caterpillar willing to enter it, willing to let the old stories dissolve so the true one can finally be written. Radical self-love is the willingness to stand in front of a true mirror, to see ourselves clearly, our gifts, our wounds, our power, our patterns, without flinching, without collapsing, without hiding. To look at the voice that has spent years whispering, "You're not the real thing," and say, "You know what? I see you. I understand why you're here. You were trying to protect me, and I'm choosing something different now." And that is not soft. That is one of the most powerful things a human can do. That is what makes someone truly, utterly, magnificently unstoppable, because we're facing the parts of ourselves that we let stop us. That's what unstoppable is. We go in and discover what's stopping us, and we dissolve it at its root. The willingness to know ourselves completely and to truly love what we find unconditionally. Love is the fiercest force to be reckoned with, and that's how we actually become unstoppable. Most of us wait for life to force us into the cocoon. We wait for the breakdown, for the health issue, the relationship that finally shatters. But what if we didn't wait? What if we chose the inward journey, choosing to go into the stillness, the truth-telling, to step into that radical self-love and truly come home to yourself before the crisis demands it? That's what this work is, and that is what this invitation is all about. Here's why the cocoon works so well. Every experience of shame, every moment of being told you weren't enough, every time you made yourself smaller just to survive, your nervous system didn't forget that. It learned. It took those moments and turned them into instruction. A program that runs quietly beneath every decision you second guess, every relationship pattern you can't quite break, every room you walk into already braced to be found out. And that's the program of the reversed mirror, the voice of the imposter. And here's the thing about programs: you cannot think your way out of one. You can't willpower your way out. Even though all of these things are great, these are tools, because the program doesn't live in your conscious mind. They live in your body, in your nervous system, in the place where the original wound was written, in your subconscious, in the part of you that learned to doubt yourself before you were old enough to choose differently. That's where the rewrite has to happen. That's why the cocoon matters, not as a concept, as a container, a safe, intentional space where the old story gets to dissolve. and the truth of you gets to connect, amplify, and become the new blueprint. And when that happens, everything shifts because you finally stopped running a program that was never truly yours to begin with. And when you do this, your decisions change, your relationships change, what you allow changes, what you attract changes, what feels possible changes. Because you've changed, not on the surface, at the source. The butterfly doesn't try harder to fly. They simply stop believing the wings belonged to someone else. Radical self-love is not a reward you get after you do the work. It is the cocoon in which the work becomes possible, because you cannot manipulate someone who knows themselves to their core, their values, their boundaries, their needs, their desires for who they want to be in this world. You can't manipulate that. The real you, the whole you, the true you is waiting on the other side of being willing to look, to truly see with soft eyes and an open heart, and the revolutionary decision to meet yourself with love instead of judgment. And now let's dive into the weekly questions. On leadership, where have you been quietly disqualifying yourself from the rooms, the roles, the platforms that you were made for? And what would change if you decided to walk in knowing that you belonged in every one? In love and your relationships, what version of love have you been accepting because the reverse mirror told you the real thing was for other people? And what would you claim instead if you finally saw yourself the way the people who truly love you already do? And for radical self-love, what is one part of yourself you have been calling an imposter? And what would it feel like to look at it tenderly, completely, and say, I see you. You were never an imposter. You were always a butterfly, even in your first chapter. Sit with those, feel them, let them crack something open beautifully inside you. The cocoon isn't a prison. It's the most sacred space you will ever inhabit. Until next time, let's get iconic. Icons, thanks for being here. If anything in today's episode landed for you, please share it or do a review. It helps get the work out there. And if you're ready to go deeper, the Salon of Possibilities is your next step. A private transformational session with me you can book right now at inner-icon.com. This podcast is brought to you by Inner Icon, where leaders lead fully and lovers love boldly. Until next time, let's get iconic.